give it just a sec here. Sometimes there's a delay. All right. Hey, everyone. We are here today for an episode of DeFi Talks with DeFi Dad. I'm joined by the co-founder of Alpha Finance, Tascha Pan. And Tascha has joined me before on Yield TV. We've talked through all of the ins and outs of Alpha Homora V1, and now they've just relaunched V2. So we want to talk through it, screen share how you can use it, just kind of help you to understand what's new in V2 and what you can potentially take advantage of as a DeFi investor. So Tascha, welcome to whatever this is, DeFi Talks with DeFi Dad. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. Always great to get on the show and talk to you about various things that we're working on, particularly today on V2 that we just launched yesterday. So now it's, a little over 24 hours, and now we have 1.2 billion total value locked on V2 alone. So, there are a lot of things that you can use with V2. So, that's why I think this would be pretty helpful for the users, whether you're a lender, whether you're leverage farmers, or, other ways that you can interact with the product alone.
Can you just remind us the history of Alpha Homora? When did you all launch V1? And then you launched a part of V2 a while back, and then had a setback, but went back and really have it's V2 is I've personally used it, so it's awesome. We're going to talk about why it's awesome, but yeah, can you kind of talk me through those milestones over the last year?
Yeah, so we launched Alpha Homora back in October 2020, which sounds like ages ago, and that was only on Ethereum, and pretty much based on the market gaps that we saw. Right, first is that there are so many ETH lenders and ETH holders, pretty much, but the yields on ETH in DeFi in general is pretty low. So we decided to couple that with the significant demand of yield farming and these users who want to borrow assets to leverage yield farm. So hence, in Alpha Homora, there are two types of users. One being lenders, in V1 only ETH, and then then the other side is leverage yield farmers, in which in V1 they borrow ETH to leverage yield farm, right? So that was back in October, and then we also expanded to BSC, Binance Smart Chain, back in March, April, around March time. And now we're launching Alpha Homora V2, which is a pretty extensive and expanded version of Alpha Homora in general. So what that means is, as a lender, right, you can lend a number of assets. So right now you can lend ETH, USDT, USDC, DAI, YFI, and we're adding a lot more assets too. So we'll be expanding quite a lot on the lending side of things. And on the leverage farmer side, if you go on to homora-v2.alphafinance.io, you would see that there are a number of pools that are also not ETH based. So this means that if you are looking to leverage yield farm and don't want to bear too much risk, you can also enter into the stablecoin pools in leveraged yield farming. So that would be pretty nice way for you to earn some yields without bearing the high risk, right? Another thing that we added, which is on Alpha Homora V2, is the Alpha Oracle Aggregator, which we launched this week as well. So back in last Monday of this week. So that is something innovative and new on the infrastructure layer side. So I can talk more about that if you want to know more about that too.
Yeah. So to summarize, if someone's new, I think about Alpha Homora V2 as it's an opportunity to yield farm with a larger position. Normally, you could go into Zapper and you can, add liquidity to, one of, I think we have like 1,500 plus pools. But that requires that you have the assets, or you're willing to at least add liquidity with however much money. What you've enabled here is you're borrowing. In this case, sometimes you're borrowing Ether, sometimes you're borrowing stable coins. Borrow it, and then you have a larger position that you're earning more yield farming rewards. But because the rewards outweigh what it costs to borrow, it makes sense. It's a very clever mechanism. It's easy to use. And then on the flip side of that, what I think you called out is just the fact that if you click on the Earn tab, you have this ability to lend to those that are borrowing to yield farm with larger positions. So right now, it's 4.98% on ETH. We've seen it on V1 as high as 20% the last time you were on Yield TV. And these are great ways to be able to earn yield on idle assets with those that are willing to yield farm on Alpha Homora. So okay, I'm gonna shut up now. Could you talk us through like what we're looking at here? So this is the Earn tab. How would I participate in this?
Yeah, so the people who hold these assets, instead of holding, and having these assets remain idle, you can supply these assets here on Alpha Homora V2, and then you would be earning these APR, which is pretty much the lending rate. So these are the lending rate per year. And the people who are paying these rates are the ones who are borrowing these to yield farm. So the people that we call leverage yield farmers, so they would be borrowing these assets to increase their position size, and hence they would be paying the borrow APR, which translates to the APR that you gain here. So, just very simple. You can just click supply, and then just enter how many of the token that you selected that you want to lend, and then just confirm. So that's pretty much it on the lending side. Pretty simple in terms of operations. And now we have 5 assets, and we're looking to add a number of these additional assets more going forward as well. So keep the lookout for the new assets, and then definitely you will be able to use Alpha Homora whether you are risk averse or not risk averse users.
Yeah, this is, if you've used Aave or Compound, it's fair to compare this. I mean, all you're doing here is you're just lending your assets and earning that interest there. So this is really one of the easiest ways to use Alpha Homora, because what you've done, what we're going to talk about on the other side of the equation, is you've created a lot of demand to borrow these assets because they're borrowing so they can yield farm with larger positions. Before we do hop to the yield farming tab, what risks would you say are top of mind? We talk about smart contract risk. That one is always there, and all of this risk you should be able to cover with something like a Nexus Mutual, since Alpha Homora is covered by it. But what other risks should users consider?
Mm-hmm. So for the lender's side, it would be the smart contract risk alone. So there's no additional risks that come with it. I would say the rare case, which still would not translate to the risk on the user's end, is that, let's say when there are liquidations on the borrowing side, or let's say when the borrowers don't repay, right? If the borrowers don't repay and the collateral that the borrowers put on the platform is too low to cover the amount that they actually borrow, then that's the risk on the lender side. But that would be applicable to other lending protocols as well. So if you think of the Earn tab on Alpha Homora V2 as a lending protocol alone, then from the lender perspective, the risk would be similar to using other lending protocols.
Yeah, there you go. So reminder, I'm always talking about Nexus, but if you buy cover for Alpha Homora on Nexus, I'm going to triple check it before the end, but I checked it this morning, and I'm pretty confident it covers all of this. And so you're covered, whether it's smart contract bugs or something even like some sort of a flash loan attack. I'm not quite sure if you would be vulnerable to that as a lender, but everything under the sun other than the wrongful use of an admin key. So, okay, that's covered then. Let's talk about the yield farming tab. This is what gets everyone excited, because you can earn like 281% on stable coins. I'm guessing within a few hours it'll probably drop after more people discover that. But how does this work?
Yeah, so these are the pools that we have now, and we are looking to add more pools going forward as well. So what this means is, depending on which pool, you can take a different farming position. So let's say with Uni ETH, the maximum leverage would be different from, let's say, stablecoin pool, which is Curve 3 pool, right? Because these Curve 3 pool contributes of 3 stable coins, which are a lot less risky. So the maximum leverage that you can take on Curve 3 pool is a lot higher. So that's how you can, choose different strategy based on your risks as well. So let's say if you decided to go with, let's say with the stablecoin pool first. So what that means is now you come to the first step, which is supplying token. So in addition to supplying any of these tokens, so technically you don't have to have all 3, right? So if you only have USDT, you can just supply all USDT, and then we can still process it to the next step, because we would optimally swap it for you. What's new in V2 is that you can see here that there is this LP token, which means that if you are already yield farming on Curve, you don't have to unwind your position to use Alpha Homora. You can just take the LP token and supply it here, and then move on to the next step. So this LP token would be, considered as collateral as well. So, this would be a pretty, I would say, smooth and allowing us to also attract a pretty huge and large group of users that haven't used Alpha Homora before, or the ones who are leverage farming on elsewhere. So
one thing to call out there, Tascha, is just that so I don't need DAI, USDC, or Tether if I'm already in the 3 pool. If it's not staked in the Curve DAO, which is something people commonly do, but if I'm already an LP, this is an option. I can come here, choose the 3 Curve LP, and I think you can leverage up 7x or something here. We'll see it on the next step.
Yeah. So let me go to here, because then we can see the next step clearly. So let's say you supply the first step already, right? So now it's come to the second step. Okay, in this case, it's a different pool now. So just switch the gear to DAI ETH pool. So now you can see that there is the leverage tab here. So you can decide, what leverage you want to enter at. If you click 2.33, then what that means is, this is a little tricky. We're going to make this, a lot more friendly. So we're aware of this, and we're going to improve on this. But what this borrow section means is that you have to have 100% in aggregation in the borrow. So let's say you select 2.33 and you don't decide to borrow on anything, then that means you're not taking any leverage. So you're pretty much doing 1x. So if you want to get the leverage that you selected, you have to make sure that the sum of this equals 100. So let's say that you want to borrow only DAI, right? So you would just take, you would just click 100 here, and then you would get 2.33x borrowing everything in DAI. Or if you want to borrow some in DAI, let's say half in DAI and half in ETH, you would just click 50 and 50. So then, that would give you the 2.33 with multiple borrow assets.
I could, so this makes sense to me. If you want, I've got my Alpha Homora up with stable coins. I can show that pool. We can just quickly talk through it, because you can see the dials.
Yeah.
I'll check this out. So this is just building off of what Tascha was describing. So let's go back to the dashboard. Let's pretend that I want to get into this Uniswap USDC Tether LP, which is currently earning. Keep in mind that the trading fee is really jacked up, because is this V3 or V2?
V2.
It is V2. Okay. Really high right now, the trading fee. So I'm not sure if that'll sustain. But below, we even have the Curve 3 pool, which I think is actually sustainable. So let's try this one. I've got some DAI. I've got some USDC, some Tether. So I can, I could even leave one of them off. The nice thing about Alpha Homora is it doesn't require you to have it in any special ratio. Just put in whatever you want, or as little as you want. And then I hit next. And then here's those options you were just talking about. So I could, first off, I could just lever up to 7.03x here. But then below, I can decide how to break that up. This is the part that you were saying this has to add up to 100%, right? There we go. So I'm basically trying to do that here. And I mean, long story short, as long as, if I were to leave this like this, can I just opt to do this, Tasha, and then hit next? Yeah.
So this would mean you are doing 1x because you can see here that your debt ratio is 0.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So step 1, how much leverage do you want? Step 2, decide how you will borrow to create that, in this case, 7x leverage. The numbers need to add up to 100%. Notice if I go 100% here and there, now I'm borrowing more than I'm allowed to. So let's pull this back to 25% and this to like 75. The number, you can see the numbers here going from red to not red, and that's it. So I'm at this point, I'm going to end up with, what is my total leverage? It's around that. I'm around 7x. But that's it. And then you would go through these steps of, you have to approve whatever tokens you deposit. So if I'm only depositing USDC, it's one approval. But if it's DAI and USDC, I got to approve both of them. And then the costly transaction, the Tasha, is when I finally deposit, right? I mean, that's the one where there's a lot of magic happening in the smart contracts to borrow and create that position. So if you're on Ethereum, which is where most of my DeFi positions live, just be aware, if gas prices are up, obviously it's going to cost a lot more. This is a great time, a Friday night or a Saturday night. This tends to be when gas prices fall. So, keep your eye on gasnow.org. And it's not financial advice that you should enter it, but if you're going to, this might be a good time this weekend with lower gas prices. We're not talking about it here, but does V2 also affect BSC, or is it just Ethereum?
Just Ethereum at the moment.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, Tasha, is there anything else? I can share your screen again. Was there anything else that we didn't cover? Like, we had the IB tokens, how to open up a leveraged yield farm. How do you claim your alpha? As you are earning, the trading fees are accruing, the yield farming rewards are accruing to my position. So there's nothing I need to do. If I cash out later and unwind my position, it'll all be there. But here we go. This is what I need.
Yeah, so just simply click on your wallet address, and then you'll see how many alpha you can claim. Yep. Typically, we have a blog post, or you can look into the document as well in the liquidity mining section, which is always up to date. So you can see, how much is being distributed, when it's going to be claimable. So all the information is available in the doc.
That's it. Yeah, and that's really it, right? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You're either a lender or you're technically then a borrower, but you're a yield farmer. You can also take, both sides. I've definitely lent my ETH before because rates were really high. And then I've been in the Sushi ETH LP, which was up near like 100% in net APR because of the alpha rewards, because of the trading fees, and because of, I think, the sushi swap, sushi rewards. So 3 different rewards, classic farming, but it's all automated. That's the magic of what you're doing here. So you don't have to, you don't have to manually go out and borrow money and create a larger position. Otherwise, if you do that, I think, there's still risk here. You can be liquidated. So we don't want to downplay that. You do need to, maintain a certain ratio here that you don't get liquidated. But I do believe it takes more steps for me to create that position manually. More steps means more gas, more opportunities for a failed transaction, more chaos if the markets, have a massive drawdown and I'm trying to unwind my position.
Yeah, and we make it pretty clear on the UI. So if you have your positions open, you would see the debt ratio. So if it goes close to 100%, which is when it's susceptible or subjected to liquidation, threshold. So as you can see that the red positions or the ones that are closer to 100% should be considered refilling or closing the positions. But at the same time, if you're in the stablecoin pools, perhaps you may not be too worried if it's, let's say, 95% or 96% debt ratio, because typically stablecoin pools are pretty stable, right? And these two are both stable coins. So less to be worried about that if you were to be in, let's say, ETH USDT pool with a 96% debt ratio. So that's, when you would want to consider refilling.
Tascha, is there anything to consider in terms of the risk of someone manipulating an oracle? Like I've yield farmed before with stablecoin positions like this. That's why, no surprise, one of the the best farms there are the stablecoin farms, and this is not abnormal. If anyone's looking at this wondering, like, are these people like clearly irresponsible? They've created their debt ratio is really high because stable coins are stable coins. But I definitely have always feared, if I open up a position like this, what's the chances that someone manipulates the price of USDC or Tether? Am I more protected by? I think you all are integrated with Chainlink. Anything else? I guess you can share on that risk of like an oracle manipulation.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we work with top tier data oracles, right? So we are not feeding this data alone. It's not a centralized way either. So we're taking this very seriously, and that's why we're working with a number of data oracles, including Chainlink, just to make sure that we get to the bottom of this. So that's pretty much how we thinking of this, not only just from the user perspectives from the Oracle side, but also on the UI side, because we want to make sure that users are as aware as possible on these possible risks. So hence, that's why I mentioned, with the borrow step, we want to make it a lot more clear than what we have now, just so the users understand, and very intuitive for the users.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to see you guys relaunch this, and the earn option there. That to me is something that anyone should easily be able to consider, because it's also lower transaction fees, because you're just supplying those tokens. The yield farming, there's some huge opportunities there too, because there's much higher rates that you can earn. But just forewarning, like, we're living under the same reality here as everywhere on Ethereum. If gas price is high, you are doing some really complex transactions here. This isn't like, you can't compare the two. When you earn, you're essentially depositing assets into a pool. But when you use the yield farming opportunities, there's a lot of transactions that happen under the hood, and that drives the price up of your gas. So just be aware of that. You might get to the end. There's definitely going to be some folks that'll get to the end, and you might discover it's $300, $500 of Ether. And I would say, as much as I love Alpha Homora V2, just don't be afraid to walk away and maybe wait for gas prices to come down. This is just the relaunch. I mean, there's going to be a lot more pools. There's a lot of pools on V1 that have yet to migrate. So, this isn't like a limited time opportunity. There's a lot more here. So, Tascha, anything else that you'd like to share? Otherwise, I think we covered it all.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for V2. And, just keep an eye out for more pools that we're going to migrate, going to add, and also more lending assets.
Yes. And, just a reminder then, everyone should, I do not have your Twitter handle up here. I should have done that. Total fail there. But check out homora-v2.alphafinance.io. And then you can follow Tascha here's her Twitter handle. There we go. There it is. Okay. There we go. You can follow Tascha there, and she's got the Alpha Finance handle in her description there as well. So, check it out. Let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at DeFiDad.com. And Tascha, just thanks as always. We love having you, and just continue to be impressed by what you guys put out as a team. These are really sophisticated tools, and I think the automation, like the way that you all make it possible to just deposit into the pool with any amount of assets. It's, it resonates with me because it's what we focus on at Zapper. It's all about making it easier for people to earn with some really complex tools. But on the front end, it looks a lot simpler, and that's part of the magic of DeFi. So I'm going to just end the broadcast, and we'll be in a green room in a second. But thanks everyone. Please share the link, and like I said, follow Alpha Finance. So have a great day, everyone. Bye.